Hello, YouTube. Today I'm here with my good friend, Chelsea Shanks. She's an expert in all things having to do with massage therapy and healing. She actually has 43 licenses when it comes to massage therapy and healing, and two businesses, one in West Texas and Mohanans. Am I saying that correct, Chelsea? Monahans, Texas. And also in San Antonio, Texas, she has a business here, a thriving business. And today we're going to be talking about the power of human connection and why on a societal level we may be what she calls affectionately starved, and what the solutions are in her opinion. How are you doing today, Chelsea?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Great to have you. And I thought we would start with an icebreaker. And this is the same one I asked last time, and it's, what is something that not a lot of people know about you, Chelsea?
Oh gosh. Well, I do for hobbies. I like to do psychoanalysis on just humans in my life, and they have no idea I'm doing them on them. So, I like to study into human behavior, the brain. I'm an avid skateboarder. Done that since I was 15.
You have a what?
Yeah, I lost the end of my coccyx for that one.
Okay. That's cool. That's cool. That's awesome. What have you learned from doing that, from the psychoanalysis?
So have you ever heard the saying that, oh, well, you never know what someone's going to do? You ever heard that? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's false. We can accurately predict human behavior and their next 4 moves in life by their past predictions. And that's why we have statistics. It's not to box anybody in, but the brain will make 1 out of 3 choices when it comes to a fork in the road. And so in all of my studies on just people in my personal life, they meet statistics. And so it's fun. It's fun trying to see if you can get one of those rare, 8% of humans to react a certain way. So it's fun.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very cool. Awesome. And I thought it would start with your journey or your story. So what inspired you to become a massage therapist? I can tell it's something that you're passionate about. What inspired you to make that decision in your life?
Well, I was an odd kid. And so I've been rubbing people since I was 3, you always have that uncle who's always trying to mess with you, like, chasing you with a nasty toe or something like that. And then me, I'd be like, ooh, let me look at it. Let me see, or if someone I knew had surgery, and there were adults talking about, well, yeah, here are the pictures of the surgery. I'm like, can I see? So I'm very anatomically interested. I love anatomical science. I love the human body. Yeah. And by the time I was 9, I knew that I wanted to be a massage therapist. Now, I didn't know too much, or, I knew I wanted to work with the body in humans, but I didn't know quite what I wanted to be. As in medical massage therapy, which is what I figured out by age 12. I wanted to do medical massage therapy, and I would save up all the money that I was gifted for Christmas and things like that, which wasn't too much. But I would save it up, and I would go into all these different types of places, a spa, medical spas, things like that. And I would get 30-minute massages. And as soon as the lady would start massaging me, I had a spiral notebook and a pen. And I would, start asking her questions about taxes and if she worked for herself or how much she made, or is she happy, or what, how many hours of school did she complete? How much was her training? And they would just look at me and like kind of laugh and be like, you asked a lot of questions. And I'd be like, I don't have any more money. I need a lot of answers. I don't have any more money. And so I started working very hard to get scholarships because we didn't have money for me to go to college. And so I did, and I graduated high school. By 15, I took a year off, and I started full-time college at 16 with a scholarship through Mensa. So.
Wow. So you graduated high school at 15 years old?
Yes.
And went to college at 16. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So obviously very, what's the word for that? Ahead. Smart.
Yeah, but I'm socially crippled, which is what ventures into why human connection has impacted my life so much. Because I've been academically challenged in school ever, but socially, I was just crippled. Yeah,
and it's hard to tell nowadays, but that's cool. I'd love to hear all about that journey. I wanted to, so I think, first of all, I wanted to commend you. I think it's very smart to go into something by asking questions of people who do it for a living, Because I think all too often we just go into something and we're like, oh, maybe I'll love it, maybe I'll hate it. I did that for sure in my past. So I think that's very smart, especially for being so young.
Yeah.
You said you've always been fascinated with the human body. What's something about the human body that a lot of people don't know that you'd like to share?
Human body that people don't know. I mean, pick apart. um, okay. So your parasympathetic nervous system is in control of. It's what when you are mentally stressed or something like that. You know, I hate when people say, you know, be careful because stress can manifest physically. No, it's a physical system. It is a physical thing. So if you, it's very, very easy to read human behavior and how they're feeling and what they're thinking by, you know, what they're doing. And so nonverbal communication is something that a lot of people just don't notice. So for myself, let's say for myself, if you ever catch me, I'll do this.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll just be talking, you know. Now, when people touch random spots on their body, like if you're up here, it can be a little different, but that is because there is an emotion that's usually it's under there. Your surface emotions are surface, but it'll be, you know, I'll be reaching points here, and so a lot of people aren't aware that emotional cysts do form on the parasympathetic nervous system, and there are over 2,000 points on the body that you can read, and you can track back that person. I can tell you exactly how they got to where they are and every single trauma they've ever had to endure in their life and where they currently are just by reading their body. We don't have to talk about anything. And then how to fix it.
Yeah, that's really cool. I never would have even thought about that. So people touching certain points is like they're recalling a certain memory or emotion.
Sure, but it's under the surface. It's not, so they're not quite aware of, you know, of knowing that they're feeling abandoned or anguish or sorrow or guilt, or there are all sorts of things.
Like it's so like by that you mean subconscious, is that correct? Like it's not conscious?
No, not subconscious, just on a parasympathetic level, because people are not synchronized with their bodily systems. They're so separate nowadays, and so people don't. I ask people all the time in session. I'll go, well, when did that start? And they'll go, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I'll go, but you don't tell yourself that. You know, like, but people are so used to just being treated as they're stupid. You know, you go to the doctor and they just treat you like you're stupid. Well, you didn't go to medical school. You don't know what's wrong with you. You don't know, you know, and so they don't know, they say. And
yeah.
like, you know, let's think.
That's interesting. There's almost a lack of connection with our own bodies.
Very much. Very
is what I'm hearing, which is kind of sad.
Very decent.
And then you're almost, I've noticed that before with people. It's like you go to the doctor and people are almost embarrassed or ashamed to ask questions about their own body.
Right. And we are trained, in the medical field. So I am in the medical field. Massage therapy and medical massage therapy are different things. Your insurance does take me, and we're recognized in the medical field. So we all have to take the same courses on bedside manner, pathology, and relationship. Relationship, what? That sounds weird, right? You're not supposed to have a relationship with your doctor. Actually, it is flip-flop. We are taught how to have a relationship with you, a correct one, a power going on. And we are taught how to educate and how to make you feel comfortable so we can establish a trust foundation. So
awesome. I love that. Very cool. So sounds like you were always drawn to massage therapy. Next, I wanted to begin with a topic of how we can improve human connection in our own personal lives. It may be something that we may not even realize is a problem in our lives. We may be in a relationship that we think is good, but it's not, or something like that. So I kind of want to get a feel for that, because that's just kind of my feeling, but I may be wrong. And I wanted to start with, why is it important for people to increase the amount of human connection that they have in their lives?
Right. Okay. Well, I liked what you said about, you know, how is it that we know if we have human connection? That is the first step, being aware that you are affectionately starved and that you don't have the connection or the intimacy, which is not, intimacy is taken as a sexual nature nowadays. It's not a sexual word. It means getting on a deeper level with a human. So, you know, being more vulnerable or taking the time to speak with people knowingly.
Yeah.
So being aware that there's a problem is the first step. We rationalize as humans in our brains. We because the brain wants to move forward in life. So it will rationalize things that you don't consciously know. Well, why did this happen? Well, probably because, you find yourself talking into those types of things. So understanding that is the second step, that we rationalize things. So humans need and thrive on connection. We can prove this by understanding that right when we come out of the womb and we're born, our seventh bodily system, the parasympathetic nervous system, starts to develop through and only through healthy human touch. Wow. In infancy. That's it. That's how your emotions are formed. And that's why we have things like sociopaths, not psychopaths, sociopaths. If you cannot touch your child, let's say they're born preemie, things like that, they can only have a medical touch, which the doctors and surgeons and nurses, they're busy. They don't hold those babies all day. They do try to get a couple hours in a day, but they're extremely underdeveloped in their parasympathetic. And so they just don't have those emotions. And unfortunately, there's no way to develop those later. They can teach proper coping skills and maybe, mimicking emotion. So proving that only healthy human touch is what our brain needs right after we're born, and you can only get it through other humans, proves that we need human connection. And the things that we can do personally to start connecting with others are very simple. 1, realize there's a problem. 2, realize that you need to quit rationalizing. And 3, do certain things like wave at people. Wave at people first. There was a study done by a psychologist who adopted a little girl in Ethiopia. And his 3rd trip down there, he was being driven to the place. Now, where he was going, there's no roads. People don't drive cars. And he said, I was sitting in the car being driven, and I was looking around at the people, looking astonished that there was some man here driving, being driven around in a car. And they would all stop and look at me. Well, on my way back, I had noticed that no one waved at me. So I decided to do a study. And I love this study. This is one of my favorites. On his way back, and he continued when he got into the States, continued the study. He said, almost nobody waves, but almost everyone waves back. So waving at people, initiating connection, and not in a courteous way, not in a polite way. This polite thing that we have going on as a society, hey, how you doing? And then walking past each other, that's not okay. Start changing the way you talk to people. Hey, thank you for holding the door. Hey, good to see you. Make a statement instead of asking a question or trying to establish some type of fake on the surface, but asking a question on a deeper level. That's good. So initiation is always a good way to start.
Yeah. So it's almost a form of awareness when you're connecting with other humans, not autopilot. How are you? I'm good.
That's right.
Me too. And then bye,
That's right.
So it's more like, okay. Would you say it's a form of mindfulness while you're talking to others? Is that true?
It's a form of conscious, like you're conscious that you're asking a question. Some people talk all the time. I talk all of the time, but when it's conscious, when you're initiating it and when you're taking the time to do so, a lot of people go, hey, how's your day? But when you sit down so one thing I like to do is I like to compliment people when I first make eye contact with them. And I will say, hey, how's it going? And they're like, oh, good. And then I'll be like, I love your whatever, but I make sure it's an honest statement. And I be sure to hold eye contact. People look away very quickly, and people are almost afraid to look up when you come into their presence. Or so we've become so socially crippled that we are even afraid to acknowledge presence in our vision sometimes. So and they smile after I compliment them, and they'll go, oh, thank you, and I'm like, yeah, you're welcome, and so
that's awesome. So I'm hearing here it's a lot of actions that you can take to increase that human connection, having meaningful conversations with people where you started, waving at people, so you're sort of starting these interactions, and then saying nice things to people, like, I like that bow in your hair, I like whatever it is, but real, not fake, not like
Yeah, that's the
Ka-ching.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the thing. And even if it's not complimenting them, it's, man, is it hot enough outside? Or have you been outside today? Or
Yeah.
have you ever eaten one of those? Or I stop and get into random conversations all of the time. Like I just love it.
Yeah.
So
I have two lines of thinking. One, I wanted to clarify something. What do you mean by the parasympathetic system? What is that? And how does start there? I wanted to understand that a little bit more.
your parasympathetic nervous system, you also have your central nervous system. Do you know what your central nervous system is for? It's for pain. It's for physical pain.
Okay.
Yeah, for physical pain. It also, has certain safeguards to keep you from getting hurt. But it's how you know you're in pain. It's how you know if something tickles or hurts or whatever. Your parasympathetic is the same thing. It is a physical system, just like that one, but it is for emotional fight or flight or emotional pain to let you know how you're feeling.
Okay.
And it is a system that nobody is in tune with nowadays. And I understand in a psychological sense because of being raised in the same society, but people are so distracted, one, that they don't understand what their body's telling them. And I don't mean on some type of mystic, hippy dippy level. I mean, your body talks to you. It tells you what's going on. If you break your pinky tells you it hurts. It's the exact same way with your parasympathetic system. But it is in charge of survival and your fight or flight, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's almost that emotional system under the surface. But your body's sending you signals, sending you messages.
That's right.
About this is what's going on, and too often we ignore it. It's easy to do.
Yeah. It's super easy. Brain, just like your central nervous system does. So.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask you specifically about, you talked about like if babies don't have healthy human touch from, I guess, their mother, they're more likely to become a sociopath. Is that correct? Are there studies that show that?
That's right. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Sociopaths get a bad rap. I'm just going to go there because when you hear sociopath, you hear bad person or harmful person, or they're not. I know I can bring a sociopath to mind right now that he's never intentionally hurt anybody.
Yeah.
He doesn't understand things like sacrificial love, or it's not developed. And so they don't understand, or it doesn't come up that they need to understand things like empathy. Their bodies, they don't work that way. And so they're often selfish because they don't have empathy. So they don't understand what that is. They can mimic your emotions when they're right in front of you, but they're really bad at that too. Now, psychopaths are an entire 8% of our population. Those are quite different than sociopaths.
Yeah. Okay. That's okay. That's always been something that fascinated me. So it's almost like you can intellectually understand the emotion, but you don't actually feel the emotion.
They don't really understand it. Yeah.
Okay.
They'll try a bit. I mean, yeah, they're most often selfish, and so they're not going to spend the time talking to you about how you feel most of the time because they just
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. I have so I wanted to learn about your journey. When did you so you mentioned you were very academically gifted, it sounds like, but socially you weren't. What was that journey like, and when did you realize that human connection was a problem in your life, and how did you overcome that in your life?
So I come from a very dark background. I come from a lot of abuse, every type of abuse that you can have. It's verbal, mental, sexual, physical. And so healthy human touch wasn't something that I had in my life. And so I was a very odd kid in many ways. And come to find out later, it's because of the personality that I hold. You've ever heard of the Myers-Briggs personality test? I had to be tested for Mensa of course, for Mensa IQ, but they also test you personality-wise to see if, who they're dealing with, how they can, if they can trust to give you money once a month or once every 2 weeks. So I came up as an INFJ, which is the rarest personality type. It's under 2% of people. So you have a better chance of meeting a psychopath than dealing with what I did. Anyway, but so even with all of the abuse and unhealthy touch,
Yeah.
I still would do things that I look back on thinking that's not normal for a child to do, but that's, as a therapist, that's extremely healthy. How did I know to do that?
Yeah.
But I've always been incredibly sensitive to human behavior and analyses, and I can just break it down. It's just simple for me. It's not something I had to learn.
Yeah.
And so even though I did go get learned in it and got a license in psychology and psychotherapy, it just kind of happens. And so as I got older, in elementary schoal, it was really bad. I had 3 bleeding stomach ulcers from fighting every day and from the stress. I didn't fit in. I was constantly bullied, and I was always in a fight. So I got kicked out of 4 elementary schools.
Okay.
But I always went to gifted schools, like magnet schools. And in junior high, it was just no better. And I remember starting high school at 12, and I only had to go to school for 3 hours a day. And then I would do my college courses online for the other 3 hours a day. Your basics in college. And I just couldn't connect with people. They did not like me.
Yeah.
Ever. Those people who just have that face that you don't know them, you just want to smack them. That's my face, I think.
So,
And so
yeah.
I was never on page. And some personalities can fake it to make it. You know what I mean? Like you can fake to fit into a group a little bit, but I couldn't. And I hated it as a kid. If I could have changed everything about me, I would have. Which makes it really hard to be a kid. But I did have a different experience than most with school. And so I did finish early, praise the Lord. And when I moved out of my abusive home at 17 and 2 months, that's when I was very excited to go find happiness, because I had always told myself, I remember being 5 years old and staring at a door because I was locked away for 7 years, most of the time. And I remember looking at the door and just thinking, having this active conversation in my head, thinking, if I run away, because I didn't have any bars on my windows, I couldn't take care of myself. I'm too little. Like I knew that, and I knew I'd just come back to this or have to, or maybe it'd be worse. I don't know, but I couldn't do it. And I thought, but one day I won't be too little. And when that day comes, I'm gonna seize this horse by the reins, and I'm gonna go find my happiness. And I did. And I always knew that happiness wasn't something I had to physically find, like a material or a status or money, or I always knew it was centered in individuality, I guess. And I didn't know those words, but I knew it was in me. I just had to go, get out of the entire mess that I was in, and so that's what I did. And I worked 4 years on myself. It was really hard. I had a violent temper, and I couldn't be around people. It was really hard. And so once I got past my temper, then I started going to the store every day, and I would get a pack of gum every day, and I'd stand in the longest line that I could. And my goal for that exercise was to speak to one person that wasn't the cashier, because that's redundant. You can say, hey, how you doing? And they're always like, hey, good, So to actually put in work to talk to somebody. And I remember the first time I did that, there was a man, probably 35 or 40 in front of me. And first time I'd done this, remember, and so I'm just like about to die, right? And I don't remember what was exchanged, but I remember I had said something kind of jokey, like, oh, hot enough or crazy enough in here, or whatever. And he kind of just turned around, and he had just like the hand basket, and kind of turned around and was like, oh yeah, and he kind of said something back, and I said something back. And so it was this small exchange. And my ears started ringing. And I thought I was going to pass out. And I really did think that something was like going to blow up. I really did.
Yeah.
And I just thought it worked. I said something to somebody and it was okay. And so I continued with that exercise, and then I continued with because I knew I was going to run a business in my adult years, and I was already 19, 20 at this point, and so I knew that that's what was my goal. And so in Texas, you need eye contact and a firm handshake.
Yeah.
So I focused on that, and I became a stable. It took a lot more work. It took a lot of neural bridges and exercises to build, but 4 years of that. And then it added 2, and then I was getting my psychology degree then as well. So 6 years total. And now that, I am, who I am, and don't have to work on anything from my past, and I know how to cope with things in the future. The sensitivity to others' behaviors, patterns, troubles, and just basically reading their mind without actually reading their mind, it is really creepy to some people how I can break down exactly who they are without knowing them at all. And I've been accused of being a clairvoyant, right? I'm absolutely not anything like that. I'll either really intrigue you, really creep you out, or just really put you aback. So it's helped me. And that all started with working on my social purpose.
So it started with working on yourself. Do you feel like that's why you're gifted in that area of being able to read people really well, is because you worked on that? Or do you feel like you always had that?
Yeah, so I've thought about that as well. And no, I believe all of my studies upon my personality, and going back in all of my memories as a child, the reason I was in such abusive situations, and so traumatized, but no, I still had all of the things that I have now. I just didn't know how to voice them, or I didn't, and anytime I would talk, I remember my mom going, "Oh my God, shut up, Chelsea," because I'd say something, and I was like, "Oh, well, they asked a question. I just wanted to answer it."
Yeah.
I thought they wanted an answer,
Yeah.
I think that's why I was a weird kid, but also I think that's what saved me. Because or else I would have met the statistic, which is 70%, 76% of children who had a childhood like mine or similar. I should be a prostitute, addicted to drugs, with many men at one time, just trying to fill that hole. A child abandoner, or my favorite, dead.
Oh, yeah.
So, I believe that's the only reason I missed my statistic was my personality. So, and God, I'm grateful.
Okay. Definitely. Okay. So first of all, everyone loves you now. So from what I've seen, like, you have really good energy. Everyone's always like, "Oh, Chelsea, she's so cool." So that's a great change from going from being very socially awkward to where you are now.
Yeah.
And what did you learn from that experience? That journey that you went through. What's the good? I'm sure a lot of good came out of it. But what are those golden gems that you got from that?
Sure. So, I learned what true mental wellness was.
Yeah.
And then when I went and got my psychology degree, so on both sides, I have my personal experience, and then I have psychological studies that are not funded or don't have an agenda. The way our human development actually is.
Yeah.
And I compare it with my own, of course. So on a personal level, actually healing trauma, and what that means. That I learned a lot about that, and that it's not taught. It's not, and that we're just furthering what we call mental illness, just furthering it into a darker, deeper abyss. And that's not going to help anybody. And I think the most important thing I learned, or was able to finally, let out with myself, is when you see somebody lashing out or being angry or anxiety or all of those things, I just see a human. I see a human in pain. I don't care what they say. So if I can give you a quick example, is that okay?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
Okay, so I have a client,
Mhm.
and he's a sweetheart. He's a sweet father. Well, he's talking about his daughter, and he said, my daughter's moving, and she's really mad at me. She's not speaking to me. And his daughter's 22, and the development of the brain of being a female in 22, that's your most likely stage to be an activist, right? Because women are finding what they're passionate about. They're out of their parents' house. They're finally establishing their own ground there, and they will march for it, And so that's the development. They're very passionate, and they will take a stand for it. Okay. Well, she had posted something on Facebook, and it said, "I effing hate white people." Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Facebook is a great example. You see something on Facebook that upsets you, or I don't see that. And like I said earlier, when I was a child, I wished I could, because I could never connect with anybody on that level. I never got it.
Yeah.
But what someone sees, like some personality types would be like, oh, they just don't have the facts. They're liberal, or we need to educate you because you're uneducated. The other half will just be upset because they feel attacked. And then the other will be like, family, like, oh my gosh, well, what about your grandma?
Yeah.
I saw the comments on it. Like, what about your grandma? She's white, you hate grandma, right? And then her uncle had gotten on her, and she was like, how can you say that? Like, that's horrible to say, and then other people are like, oh, you just need to be enlightened. Let me enlighten you. All of these reactions will not help. They will not help that situation. They have just upset themselves trying to intervene. What I see when I see something like that, if that were my daughter or someone I knew, I would put down my phone, and I would drive to my daughter if she was in distance. I would knock on her door. When she opened the door, I would be like, hey, and then I would compliment her, like, you look so pretty today. And I would just say, hey, I was just thinking it's a pretty day, and I miss you, and I'm tired of all of these, rules and regulations. I thought it would be nice just to go out to eat. You want to come to eat with me, or do you want to go get an ice cream? And you don't take the person to ice cream just to go, hey, I saw your post on Facebook. I see a human hurting, make human better.
Yeah.
I learned that has changed in my life, in just my personal life.
Yeah.
I've seen that change more people than ever enlightenment or a fact or trying to change their opinion or argument. To get on a relationship basis with people and establish in their eyes that you're human and that you see they're a human, that's all people want, is to be recognized for who they are. They don't really care if you acknowledge that they're right or wrong. They just want to be accepted by another human without having to plead their case. And so that is one of the biggest things that I learned, because you hear it all the time, like all these cliche terms, but actually experiencing it and giving it a try and actually getting a hold on that is wonderful. It's
Awesome.
It's the most beautiful thing I can think of.
Yeah. It's another dimension. Like, some people think about it logically and they're like, well, she's wrong. Right. Or they may agree or whatever, but that doesn't help anything. It's just going to cause an argument, and then you're kind of getting into the mud with them.
Yeah, that's great. And so I think the beautiful thing is just being human with another human, because we're raised in a society where we're forced to and raised to project a shell. And I'm not interested in the shell of humans.
Yeah. Or the mask.
No, I'm not interested. I can't do it. I will end up saying something weird. I'm still socially awkward. A lot of people are really surprised to hear that. But I'll end up saying something weird just because I'm not, I can't do small talk. I just can't. I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about them Spurs? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I'm just like, this, and they're like, what?
Awesome.
What you into this?
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I appreciate that perspective. It's another dimension of looking at it for what it really is, which is a human in pain. And even if it's someone like spouting like disgusting stuff at you, like insults and stuff, it's
That's
a human in pain.
That's right. Every human sees their world through their eyes.
Yeah.
So focus on that. It's their world. On your Facebook, whose Facebook is it? It's yours. It's your Facebook. It's my Facebook.
Yeah.
I'm posting whatever I want, right? And you
Yeah.
see this comment going through your Facebook, and you're like, not on my Facebook, right? So the world is the same way. Humans are seeing their world burning through their eyes, and it's very hard for them, and they'll lash out. That's the most common coping unhealthy skill that they have, because no one's really taught humans coping in anymore. It's not taught. It's not taught. So communication and coping are not taught. And then you have parents, broken people raise broken people, and it's not their fault that they didn't teach their kids, coping, because they don't know what that is really. They're just like, shut up and get over it, and or something, shove it just deep down in there and hope it didn't come out. So.
Yeah, no, I that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, what advice would you give to someone who feels that they lack human connection?
So intimacy would be what psychological exercises for that would be intimacy related. There are, if you need, I can provide, I'll provide a link in the comments for a great.
Please do, yeah.
It's really easy. So I tell my clients, pick one of these a day and do them. Just one. Just give me one. Give me one, and you will build up neurological bridges in your brain that now, if you don't have a path, you can't choose to walk down it.
Yeah.
So just like that. A path isn't going to appear one day, or I'll get it right one day, or I'll figure it out one day. No, that's not how it happens. Just like with muscle, you have to build it. You have to build it. And so one a day. There's, I think, 10 to choose from. One is reaching out and physically holding someone's hand, fingers laced. It doesn't matter who it is, your child, your mom, it can be yourself. It can be yourself. That's one. Another is making time ahead of time to ask somebody about their day, or ask somebody, how was your day? Did anything affect you in your day or your week? Are you being affected? But you plan for that time ahead of time. That's really good. And just be there to listen to them, and they'll pick up on that fact that, you want to hear them. People have, that parasympathetic that's supposed to be able to read other humans, even though it's severely underdeveloped nowadays. People can usually pick up, that you're being genuine, and that you really want to hear about their day at that point. That's one. And two, reach out, hold somebody's hand, touch somebody, make time for them, and I'll leave it in the link. It's really good. They can just do that once a day, and they'll notice changes quickly as that neural.
Awesome. So that'll be in the comments.
Yeah.
And awesome. And you had mentioned correct psychological exercises. Is that an example of some of those? Like reaching out to someone, waving at people? That's
right. So psychological exercises are defined by things that you can do that will exercise to build neural bridges. So in the brain, so they will affect the development of the brain that was underdeveloped at one point. If you have problems with being touched, if you have problems with self-worth, if you have problems about feeling like you're never going to be enough, not going to. That's all from rooted trauma, and that's developed in early childhood. And so that can be fixed. Now, can you develop those parts of the brain that are underdeveloped? No, but you can make a new neural bridge to get out of the patterns that you're in. And that's the thing about mental wellness that's not taught. And it's tragic. It's tragic because this was proven long ago. This isn't new. It's psychiatry and psychology have gone so far down. It's very sad. But psychological exercises will get you to a point where you're building the bridge. Once it connects from here to here, you now have the option to go here. Now, what starts off with this bridge is behaviors. stop. You don't have to work on these behaviors. They come with the neural bridge. You can strengthen behaviors if you like them. Some are coping skills, breathing, watching your tone, being more and progressive with your day, reaching out to people. Like it's certain, just there are many behaviors that can go off of those, and you can strengthen those. But that's the awesome thing about it is psychological exercises build a bridge. That's all you have to worry about. That's it. So let's say, and they've been extremely watered down and changed, which is really sad over the years. I'm going to give you an example. So affirmations, positive affirmations. What do you think about when you think about positive affirmations? What do you think I'm telling you to do?
Well, I guess saying things like, I think of the law of attraction. I think of saying like, oh, I'm healthy, I'm wealthy, I'm rich, things like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So a lot of people verse it with the law of attraction now. So Eastern mysticism, which came over in the 70s, has truly integrated so well within our society. Psychologically, the exercise positive affirmations. I'll give my client a list of, I think I had like 50. And I tell them, you can't take your phone. I forbid their phones because I'm like, no, because they'll distract you. No phone. So take a list of these positive affirmations. You go into the bathroom or somewhere with a mirror. You look into the mirror, and that's when you say confidently, just pick 10 and do that once a day. You can do more, that's great, but do it once a day. It's actually very hard. If you have a problem in that area, if you need a psychological bridge and you have problems in that area, to do, it's very hard. The brain doesn't like to face itself, and it does that through the ocular nerve. And so, if you have some underdevelopments, and so not just hearing positivity, because that's what Eastern mysticism has turned it into. It's like, well, if I just listen to it in the car on my way to work, that's good and it's positive, and I'm inviting positivity into my life. No, the psychological exercise is you're actually doing something. You're building a bridge. If you don't look into your own eyes and say it confidently, it does not work. Now you can have a placebo effect, and it may make it feel a little better, but it won't change the patterns in your own life that you constantly cycle through. And so I really like that one. People will try to get out of doing it. They're like, oh, well, I put it in the car on the way to work. I'm like, no, you can't change it. So, and it changes fast. Psychological exercises work quickly. You don't need a therapist. You don't need to go to therapy every month or week of your life. You don't need to pay a therapist. If anyone is milking you that way, I'm here to tell you that I'm a therapist, and there are 3 things I tell my clients that no other therapist is going to tell their clients. And I think it's unethical, but we don't fix you. You fix you. We are supposed to give you, assess you, evaluate you, and give you everything that you need to fix yourself. And you're good as gold. I mean, you can come talk to us if you want. I've got clients who, they want to do that, but I can't fix them if they're not doing what I've already given them to do.
Okay. That's cool. Okay. So, that's sort of the correct way, or you're saying that's the correct way is with the affirmations is in the mirror, talking to not yourself, but looking at your reflection.
You look into your own eye. Yes, it's very hard. Try it later.
I will.
And anyone who
can
tries
do it right now. Yeah. Awesome. So I wanted to get to the next part. You talk about on the societal level, there's a lack of human connection. And some things that came to mind while you were talking was cell phones, social media, which I think can be used for good. Like you can put some good out there with social media. It gives you a platform. You can speak to people all the way across the world. I remember there was someone watching my videos from India. I thought that was real cool. But there can also be a bad side to it, right?
That's an understatement.
Why do you describe our society as being affectionally starved? And how do you think it got that way?
Sure. So when you ask somebody things they struggle with, something you're not going to hear is affectionately starved, right? No one's ever been like, I'm so affectionately starved today, right? But we are. And it's not just in America, it's not just in our culture and cultures all over the world. There's such a distance in between people. we'll talk about here in America, the convenience and the busy life now have taken so much of our time and effort away. Do you know how many minutes the average parent spends with their child? Now, I'm not talking about picking them up from school. I'm not talking about driving. I'm not talking about cooking. I'm talking about consciously and awareness that I'm going to go spend time with my child 9 minutes a day.
9 minutes? Wow.
So when you're raising children and you have 9 minutes a day for them, just for them, we've got a big problem. And a lot of parents that have come to me, and I'll ask them the same question. They'll go, "Oh, 3 hours a day or so," and I'll go, "Great, log that for me. Log that next time." And they start logging it, and then they stop logging it day 2 because they realize they're aware that all the time that they were thinking about was picking them up from school, or cooking, or taking them to school, getting them ready for school. That's not time with them. It's not. And so public schools, we send our kids to let the government raise them for many, many hours a day. And in public school, we have a whole nother issue. We have a lot of learned behaviors. We have a lot of authoritarian-like raising. And it definitely doesn't promote social wellness.
Yeah.
Like, let's say I was assaulted in the bathroom at my building. I was in the bathroom and 3 girls came in and whipped me up, right? One, if I went to the building manager and I was like, the owner of the building, like, these people attacked me, and the building manager, just like the teacher, the principal, was like, "Oh, I didn't see it. I don't know if that happened on the premises. I don't know. It's not my problem." Like, okay, I would go to the police, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of times in school cases, the police, I had a client, her daughter was jumped in the bathroom by 3 of the girls, and she also walked home. And so she had to be walking home every day because they told her that they were going to get on the way home too. And so she went to the police after the principal was like, "Oh, I don't know if that really happened on our premises or not. I don't have any proof of that." And so she called the police, and the police said, "It's best to drop the issue because we can, fine you for letting her walk home alone because that's not safe." So they threatened her, not the girl's parents. They threatened her for letting her child walk home alone, and if she didn't drop the issue, it would be an issue. But if she did, it'd be fine, So she felt it a loss, and I seriously had this lady tell me, "I don't know what to do. My daughter's coming home every day crying, and I don't know. Well, we'll just leave her in the public school system, I guess." I mean, so things aren't taught, and that's why this mother had no idea what to do, because it wasn't taught to her. That's what she grew up in.
Yeah.
And so even in the workplace, like, people don't know how to ask for adequate help. They don't know where to go for a correct factual research. They don't know, and so that's raising children constantly in that we don't have. It's just gotten worse and worse and worse, with that. And so
bullying, and then a lot of the times it is kind of like, "Oh, we're not going to deal with the issue," which is adults basically teaching children by example, like, don't deal with your issues. Don't face them at all.
That's when the brain develops. That's when you learn all of your skills, your problem solving skills, your individual. And another thing in public school, individuality is not a thing. It's not, same backpack, same pencil cases, same, like when my son was going to school, because I gave him a choice whether he wanted to or not. I didn't want to impose my beliefs on him, and he couldn't pick his own. We couldn't have erasers. We couldn't have pencil bags that were cool. We couldn't have, we can't have that. I was like, why? And now at that school he's going to, it's all clear backpacks. And so these kids have lost all individuality. You either conform or you're sent to the office. We're not doing that now. It's out of this book. This is what we're learning. Nothing outside of it, factual or not. And here is what's going to be on the test. And if you can't regurgitate this information, you're not smart. And that's just not how the human brain works. Humans are incredibly intelligent and incredibly special creatures. What sets us apart from animals is the fact that we can question. and that we have individuality. Horses all sleep standing up. They don't question it.
Yeah.
You know, they're not like, why do we do this? You know, it's just like,
Yeah.
that's how they do it. So in the adult world, it's called collaboration.
Mhm.
When you get with another human and you're like, hey, I'm good at design. Are you good at business? And you can go into flipping houses, or you can go into whatever. In school, it's called cheating.
Yeah.
You know, if you collaborate on things that you're not as good at. And that teaches it's every man for himself in this world.
Yeah.
Every man for himself, or that you're a criminal if you don't know the answer and you try to go, you're a criminal.
Yeah. But
And
think about this. How many issues do we have in our society because people don't want to ask a question? And they're almost like scared to ask people questions. And that causes like so much misunderstandings and problems.
Well, that's right. That's a communication issue. And that's 50% of all of the issues that I deal with is can be fixed. 50% of the issue can be fixed with communication.
Yeah.
People are taught it. And communication is very simple, and it actually provides the things that you're trying to avoid. You know, actual conflict. People are so scared of conflict. It's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah. You know, they just run from it, or if something happens, they try to demonize this person to make them feel better. I mean, it's just crazy. And then they look for validation in other people. Like, I did the right thing, right? Because this is, and they're like, oh yeah. And they're like, yeah.
That's so common. Yeah.
Instead of communication, if there's an issue, let's talk about it. Let's fix it. If you hurt my feelings, I'm going to tell you right there. It's not a big deal. Hurt feelings aren't a big deal. But I've really had people just from that statement, you know, they'll say something and I'll be like, if it's the appropriate time, I'll be like, oh, don't say that. That hurts my feelings. You know, maybe say it a different way. And that's it, just like that. And they'll be like, well, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. I'm like, no, I know it wasn't intentional. I was just communicating that way. When we like reworded it a little different, it kind of triggered a response for me there. And I thought, you know, we could say it a little different type of way. It was a little hurtful. And that's it. And they'll be like, well, I'm just a terrible person, aren't I? I hurt your feelings. And I'm like, no.
Yeah. And it's cool that they didn't want to hurt your feelings.
It's crazy.
And I think that's like masterful social skills, in my opinion, to say something like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
because it's uncomfortable.
Correct. It's people don't know how to communicate, especially with children. Because you're raised in an authoritarian aspect to say things or do things that have developed over time. You're not aware of it, but they develop like because you have to raise your hand in class, right? You got to raise your hand, ask if you can go to the restroom, and they'll say no. Like, you don't just automatically get to raise your hand and ask a question. They're like, yeah, no, it's their decision. And so this teaches a very authoritarian mindset. And if you speak out of turn or whatever, or, you know, you're a troublemaker and you're sent to the office. And that's where troublemakers go. And so, but that's why you get parents to say things like, you know, why, mom? And they're like, because I said that, or because I'm your mom, I'm your mother. Yeah. And it's like, that, don't you remember being a child and being told those things and going, you're just in a bad mood? Like, you know, like you understand that as a child. And as an adult, it blows my mind that people are always the age that they are currently. Like, and they look down upon any other age. Like, I've seen people go, oh, I remember what it was like to be 22, or, oh, I remember what it was like to be 25. And I'm like, you're 27, shut up. Like, you know, and so it's always, the more adult you become, the more authority you feel like you present. And yes, we do have authority over our children. I'm not saying that. I'm for, you know, guiding, actually teaching our children, you know, but yeah. So I think that's a lot of it.
That's awesome. So you mentioned our schools. I often talk about that in terms of money. It's like you're not taught how to manage money, and you're almost taught on a factory. Like the school bell, I heard, is like a factory bell. It mimics that. So it's almost like an industrial age institution, but we don't live in the industrial age anymore.
Well, it was created in the industrial age, and we got our school system from Russia. And so it was made to make factory workers. That's what it was made for. And it's never been revised, and it won't be revised, because they're not trying to make leaders, and they're not trying to make competition for their businesses. They're trying to make employees.
Yeah, I've always thought that was interesting. Very cool. And I wanted to ask you, what advice would you give someone who's raising like a newborn or a young child for kind of rethinking or kind of improving how they may be dealing with their child?
Sure. So I would stop, because I understand what it's like being a new mom and feeling lost. You feel so incapable a lot of times because you're made to feel that way.
Mhm.
And you want to do your best, but maybe you know that maybe you don't know the best. And so you're looking for answers. So they'll ask their doctor, they'll ask lactation consultant, or, you ask people that you trust.
Mhm.
And there are people you trust. And so you start doing your thing. So the school and doctors, so I get this a lot. Here's the thing. I get this a lot. I have children brought in constantly for ADD, okay, for ADHD. And they'll say, my kid has ADD, fix it, right? And I'm like, okay, cool. Well, I'll be talking to the parent for about 10 minutes and I'll tell the child to lay on my table. And there are very specific things that people who truly suffer from ADD cannot help but do. They can't, it's not a good day, And 95% of kids that I get in my office, they're not ADD. And I can tell a parent within 10 minutes and I go, so what psychologist diagnosed your child? Because for a true diagnosis and things like that, you have to go to a psychologist. So, but a lot of the schools and stuff are going, oh, well, they have ADD. And I'm like, they can't do that. So be careful for information. You think you should listen to the school and it puts you in fear because you want to do the best for your child. I'm not saying they have bad intentions. I'm just saying their information or source information comes from this government. I mean, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Just kind of be careful with those big decisions. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would look into more of maybe type in on Google, psychological development of my child, the age of your child, to see where the brain is at and what the brain is actually learning at that time. And then you can see how your reactions will actually mold that child because there are certain times in life that the child won't react no matter what to a certain thing. So that's helpful. And try to look up things like communication, physical touch, heart-to-heart hugs, manage your time, and then also research on what you are feeding them, giving them, like how are they developing, and are you developing them? Who is developing your children? A daycare, a school? You. Yeah. People get so mad because they'll go, I thought weren't you supposed to learn that in school? And then they realize that the reason their child can't change a tire at 20, and they blame it on the child. They're like, you didn't learn that in school? And they're like, no. And then you see the parent kind of go like, crap, I think I was supposed to do that. Like, but so.
That's awesome. Yeah, that makes sense. It's sort of like, I guess, paying more attention to your kids. Yeah. That's kind of what I'm hearing. Like, it's not all on the school.
Yeah, pay more attention to yourself. Be aware. I know you're doing your best. I know people are just doing their best, and we have a lot of distractions and a lot of time that we spend on things, but you can make time, and there are always options. And that's what we've learned. We've been brought up in a society that we don't know there's options. We don't. We ask for help or something, and we maybe meet a brick wall or something, and we just think that's it. Well, man up and get her done. No, there's always options. I'm raising two children who I don't deserve. And one thing I will not teach my children is blind obedience. I will not.
What?
Huh?
Oh, what was one thing you wouldn't teach them? I couldn't understand.
I will never teach my children blind obedience. That's one of the things that is very important to me that my children learn, because you can always question an authority figure as long as it's done intelligently, respectfully, and lovingly. Always. There's not a police officer, there's not a government official, there's not anything in this world that you can't question with respect and dignity. And so, but a lot of people just, they don't question anything, or they're just like, well, I guess they know better. Or you, for your children and for yourself, your household, don't you think you should know? You should
Yeah.
know better, you know? Then,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an important skill. And I could see, like, it may be easier just to be like, well, because I said so, that's why. But you're sort of teaching that, like, yeah, if someone's bigger than you,
That's
they can
right.
just basically tell you what to do,
That's exactly right. That's where
which is kind of like caveman stuff.
it's a
but-
bully. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm bigger. It's like, oh, okay.
Okay. I wanted to ask you this. What is our true human nature?
So that's a question a lot of people have. And at first, I want you to think of all of the times recently that you've heard how bad human nature is, how bad humans are at the core, and how horrible this world is. Okay. I hear this a lot. And I couldn't disagree with it more. Human nature, one, we have study after study after study on our primal drive. Okay. One of our primal drives is to connect with other humans for a lot of reasons. Human connection can be beneficial to financially, for supplies, for more help. You know, what the primal drive for humans is connection. Another is touch. Okay, so a lot of people are abused nowadays. So the actual rate of abuse is very, very, very understated. It's rampant in America. 5 out of 8 girls are sexually abused, and 3 out of 5 boys have some type of sexual trauma. And there's a statistic that goes along with that a certain amount, 3 of those girls out of the 5 of 8 that were abused will become abusers. So, and then the boys are even higher. So it's that's right. So it's 2 out of the 3 of boys will become. So we're creating a society to where this abuse is not being very, very it's not something we talk about, you know. We have a whole society built of abused people, and they don't like to be touched. They're not comfortable with being vulnerable or intimacy or things like that, but they don't understand why. They just rationalize it, you know, or and so we have that. I use a demonstration that really sums it up in one of my speeches, Healthy Human Touch. And I asked for a young man around my age, so anywhere from 25 to 35. If they could come up, I won't embarrass them in any way. I'm not going to trick them in any way. I have a massage table, and then I have another one over here. Then I ask any child under 12 with, you know, that trusts me to come up. Any child, it does not matter what, girl, boy, it doesn't matter. And I ask them if they've ever met me before. And if I talk to them before and they say no, I say okay. And then I put some earphones on the child, and I will go through a demonstration. The man is laying face down, and there's a technique in massage where I'll go over the back of your arm and your hand like that. Okay? Now it's also pressed on the table, and so you know it's pressing down. You see this here?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, when I get to their hand, a lot of people don't realize that I know what I'm doing with their body, and so when their hand starts to do that, most men will think, oh no, my hand's moving. She's going to think I'm trying to touch her or grab her.
Yeah.
And so they'll lay their hand flat. And now I can't do it because they're forcing their hand flat, right? And so it doesn't go up. What's going on in my mind is not normal. It's not normal or healthy. I understand it, you know, because of the sexual harassment and rape culture that's constantly being pushed, you know, that they want me to feel comfortable, but it's not healthy if someone is knowingly, like, you came here for a massage and just now your hand's doing this. And so it's overrode all logical thought on she's messing with my hand. Now it's doing something that I didn't know, it would do. And so now I'm going to hold it flat and I'll go, relax your hand.
Yeah.
they'll go, oh, I didn't know it was moving, and I didn't want you to think I was trying to grab you. And I go, why would I think you're trying to grab me? That wouldn't be healthy of me, right? I mean, so that's built social conditioning in our society. That's what we're building. Okay. So then I say, thank you, you did great. And then I'll go over to the child. I'll take off their earphones and I'll ask them if they're okay with me going down their arm, if they're nervous, and like that. And I will go over their arm. Every single child under 12. I've done this demonstration countless times. I am also a children's therapist. So I have never met a child who did not do this age 12 and under. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, when I go down their hand, I get their hand and they do this every time. And I'll rub their thumb and I'll wiggle out. You would think that they wouldn't do it again, right? Wrong. Every time. That is human nature. When someone puts their hand inside of yours, you want to grab it.
Yeah.
So true human nature is seeking people. If you can think of what does the hand fit naturally and organically in this world, it is the weirdest shaped thing.
Yeah.
Does it fit? What was it made to fit? Most people will say tools, working, eating. And I'll go, well, we make our money, right?
Yeah.
So they fit only another hand. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's for.
Yeah.
And so more than 92% of, and this is why it's in geopolitics, it's very easy to drive a mass of humans with geopolitics, because we've known the psychology of humans for years. I mean, and if you can tap into their primal drive, their emotion, you will change the way that they would logically act in a certain situation, because you tap into that drive and drive them to a certain place. And that's what's happened in our world, and it's been done since time. I mean, this is nothing new, and so a lot of people, they will think that they have a conclusion to a thought, but what they don't understand is the thought was actually presented to them, all evidence was given, a conclusion was given to them, and so now they have an answer to their thought. That's how you change someone's mind. And so then they're like, well, what I think is, and I'm like, you did what? You know? So did you look for that, or did you hear something say, you know what? So our primal drive is one, to question, to explore new things. We're very curious by nature. And if you can tap into someone's curiosity, then you can train them to do anything. And anything, you can teach someone anything by tapping into their curiosity, because humans are extremely curious. It's why we have our biggest achievements and why we have the stupidest deaths. So, and we strive to want connection with people. And most people do not want to harm other people. Mm-hmm. And it's very easy to control them that way. Because if you say things like, for the children, they're like, for the children, you know?
Yeah.
You know, for the whole, you know, or for, and so that is tapping into our primal drive of connection with people, and we don't want to harm people. And so you can really override that very easily. Like, well, I better not, because I'm political, but it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I want to respect your time. Do you mind if I ask a few more questions? Because I think I said an hour. I don't know if I did or not, but
go ahead.
Okay. Just want to make sure I don't keep you too long.
No, I'm fine.
So let me see. I want to ask one question on, could you talk about the Western way versus the Eastern way? That's one thing I wanted to cover real quick. I'll ask one question about that. Sure. There's a Western way of healing, an Eastern way of healing. I know something I know about Eastern is like the chakras and meditation. Yoga is one.
Sure.
What are your thoughts on that?
So I'm licensed in Reiki, children's yoga, and I've spent years studying in the Eastern mysticism, and their culture, their religion, unbiasedly. I'm into I'm into culture and humans in their natural setting. Okay.
Mhm.
It's a spiritualism. So they believe that we're all connected, right? We're all connected. And once we reach our prana, which is by awakening the Kundalini spirit or the serpent spirit that's cooled at the base of your spine, to climb the staircase to your third eye, to open it, that's enlightenment to when you can, where you can ascend and become your true divinity, your true self. And they teach like Reiki. People think that crystals have healing power, but what's taught in Reiki is the crystal is actually the channel for spiritual power to come into or out of that person. So you have to have somebody willing and open to that. So if somebody says, yeah, I think Reiki can fix me, well, they're open to whatever you're doing, even though people think it's crystals. But Reiki masters are taught to channel your spirit guides, the ascended masters. So it's all about that. Their culture, the chakras is what the Kundalini spirit travels up through. And that's, why the light, everything's in the light, goes in through the head and then out through the feet, for rooting yourself and, more grounding. Yoga is also a spiritual aspect. The master of yoga, the founder of yoga, he isolated himself his whole life to get in touch with the spirits for this mastery art. And like martial arts was another one. And the master of that, he said over and over again, in all of their literature, it says you cannot separate the physical from the spiritual. You can't. I know a lot of Christian women who will say, well, I'm just exercising. I don't do any of that spiritual stuff. And I'm like, you can't separate it, actually. And that's what Hinduism, Eastern mysticism, that's what they believe. It's you're spiritual in nature. You're not a human having a spiritual experience. You are a spirit having a human experience. That's how they do that. The Chinese didn't even perform autopsies for hundreds of years after we started doing autopsies. They didn't read the body. They're more of a Eastern ways. They look at things like the endocrine system, how you feel, your hormones and things like that. They will call it your energy, your meridians, your things like that.
Your chi, is that the word? Chi, like your life energy?
So they had, the Eastern is more of the mind, yourself personally, the mind rewiring. And it's good in the fact of becoming more aware of what you can do psychologically and physically. But a lot of people aren't aware of how spiritual it is. Like, did you know every yoga pose is a worship and prayer to a Hindu god? A lot of people don't know that. And and a lot of
I've never done yoga, but I just know like the dog one.
Sure. Yeah.
It's kind of like kneeling, but
that's in homage to Shiva, the god of destruction.
Okay.
So that's most of the Eastern way. It's very spiritual, and I know Hindu. I've got a couple of clients who I just love that. And so they are very sweet, but very spiritual. And then the Western way, sadly, internal medicine has become the thing. Now, when you say doctor, I went to my doctor, and people think of a family doctor as in the aspects of what they used to be. Family doctors, like let's say when the West was being settled, family doctors were popular. Some of them worked with sorcery, apothecary. They had their own, they had a license, but they had a license and could practice, because there were less laws. They could practice their own individual types of doctoring. And there was a lot of physical therapy involved. There was a lot of, it wasn't just when you say doctor now, what you mean is internal medicine doctor. That's their title. So I went to the doctor.
Yeah.
I'm so tired of getting pill. I'm so tired of going to the doctor because all they do is give me pills, and I'm like, then you need to stop going to an internal medicine doctor, right? Because that's how they're going to treat you. And the Western way, we have switched over from the insurance, because of insurance. It's ruined a lot of scopes of practice where we've tried to work mainly in a scientific but physical fashion. And science changes every 12 years. So, it's on both ends. It's there's a lot missing.
Okay.
In our society, especially with pain. And
It sounds like, okay, so Western is very academically focused, very logically mind focused, though Eastern way is very heart focused, spiritually focused. What would you say is the ideal way in your opinion? So I'm not saying like,
sure, in my opinion,
you have to get it completely right, but what's the ideal way of healing?
So in my personal opinion, balance is what I have found. I have so many people that tell me, Chelsea, how do you find the time to do all the things you do? I don't. I have the same amount of time that you do. My life is just very balanced. I don't have things that I feel like, well, I just don't have time. Or, well, I didn't have, like, let's say I wanted to, what do you want to do? Like, I'm mad. I don't like my job. I don't really like my job, but I'm doing it because so I can get a leg up and then maybe one day do what I want to do. That's not a good mindset. That's, the monetary system wasn't made for you to do that. It's made for you to get a leg up, and you're devoting, how many hours are you devoting a day to something you don't like or something it's not your passion? So balance in that.
Yeah.
True mental wellness. Medication is not mental wellness. The science behind that is all theory. There's nothing ever to be proven about a chemical imbalance ever done in psychiatry. It will not fix you, and it will just make your parasympathetic nervous system worse because you're still being triggered. It will still be triggered, but you just are numbing it, which ends up being worse when you get off the medication. So anyway, true mental wellness, healing past trauma is crucial in life, and you don't have to be re-traumatized to heal trauma. You don't have to go to a therapist and they'll go, tell me about when you were 6. The brain wants to move forward, and with psychosystematic release, I can read the entire body. I know exactly what they've been through. We don't have to talk about it. There are ways to fix that, to fix the trauma. So trauma fixing, balance in actual wellness and health. Don't get caught up in fads or trends. Like there's the vegan diet, there's the carnivore diet, there's all of these. They work off of the same sciences, and that's because they have an expert in this area, and this says this. Did you know that in America, we still don't have scientifically proven dietary chart?
I know the pyramid is just completely like.
Oh yeah, it's we have.
Because why did they even put sugar on it? I just thought that was ridiculous that they put sugar on it. That's what I learned growing up.
Well, the most that you eat is breads. Do you remember bread?
Yeah,
right?
And like a bunch of carbs, and that carbs. Come on.
So
I mean, they're tasty, but they're not. I don't think they're the healthiest.
It's the same with dietary trends and fads and supplements. Just trying to find out actual knowledge, genuinely and unbiasedly, is important. And and so if you find yourself stressed out after every day, not sleeping well, being agitated, feeling isolated, thinking you're mentally ill, or feeling lost, a good first step is to try to sit down and become self-aware without rationalizing. What is your day full of? And don't sit there and tell yourself, well, I have to go to work, or I have to do this, or just evaluate yourself. You are the master of your time. You are. And if it's because you had to go to work, well, you can evaluate things. I hope you're doing something that you really love and that you're passionate about and that you're good at, because your God-given gifts and your natural talents do go together, and they will fulfill you. And and you'll be great at it, and you'll be happy. So I think our work and our work lives are tremendous, and then our spiritual growth, a lot of people are lost. But
Okay.
you know, everybody can.
Okay. It's all about that balance and really, like, again, awareness of what you're doing. Instead of just always being on the, like, the autopilot, I guess, like the subconscious mind running on habits and routines, but questioning, like, is this leading me where I want to go? Am I happy right now? Things like that.
Yeah.
Awesome. And okay, I would, okay, so a question here. You mentioned human conduction, social conduction. I wanted to ask you real quick, how does politeness hurt us? You mentioned this too at the very beginning, how we can sometimes have like fake interactions.
Oh yeah.
Like, how are you? But don't actually tell me, because if you do, that's weird.
Yeah, our entire society is
Yeah.
courteous and polite. We're trained as children to manners. Manners.
Yeah.
You know, kid eats something and goes, oh, it's gross. And you're like, oh my gosh, don't tell them that.
Yeah.
Manners, right? Okay. I agree with manners. Okay. I'm not saying they're bad. What is bad is social conduction is extremely important. I don't know if you have time for me to go over heart math, but it's without an Eastern mysticism way upon it saying, you know, we're all connected, everything is connected, and everything is God.
Yeah.
I'm saying humans are all connected in a different sense. We give off different frequencies, all of our organs do, and our heart actually can predict the future 6 seconds into the future. Did you know that?
No.
It's amazing. So your heart starts pumping a different frequency 6 seconds before the brain is activated and can predict what's in the future because it's so sensitive to what's around you.
Yeah.
So it's called heart math. If you ever wanted to look up study on that, it's very interesting. It's very cool. And once it proves that once you get a mass of the entire population of
I think
the entire other part of the mass, and they may have never heard of it before. They may have never seen anybody or heard about it before, will do it.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But that's how humans are connected. Social conduction, something like not acknowledging somebody when they enter the room with you, you know, because you're looking at your phone and you think, oh, you know, now they're in here. They're sitting right there. And instead of being like, hey, how are you? I'm just going to act like I didn't see them and they're on their phone. So they're going to act like they didn't see me. Or it's very easy to get yourself in those types of talks. But why are you talking that way? What is the point? What is that? It's bad social conduction. It's bad human conduction. And people don't realize that, well, just because, you know, I did that, it's not like, you know, I control the world or anything like that. And in a deeper sense, it goes deeper than if I smile at somebody, maybe they'll smile at somebody else because they're in a better mood. It goes deeper than that on a conducting level. How you act in situations affect our species, our entire human race. It does. And all of these social conditioning that we grow up in. I had a great example. So a client the other day asked me, what is social conduction? I don't know what that is. I said, I'm going to give you a great example. Before our appointment, I said, I took a picture and it was of myself looking very displeased. And I had put up there, done with my day. All right. Done with my day. Put a photo of myself looking displeased and posted it. And after his appointment, I said, so you asked what social conduction was. Let me show you. And on the comments, so remember, I said something and you could see my face. Two very important reads, even though it's online. I said something and you could see my face. And it was synchronized. Not pleased, done with my day. Okay. Yeah. Every single comment but one, and I think there was 12. And it was, but you're still beautiful, or well, you know, it was all comments on my face, and my physical localized beauty, I guess, or I don't know, but you look pretty. I mean, and so there was one person who's an elderly lady, and she said, I'm so sorry that you haven't had a good day, and I hope tomorrow is better.
It's interesting. It's
So,
like
Yeah.
it's like you hurt your head and everyone's like, well, your arm is okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. To see humans on such a physical level, and like I was talking about earlier,
Yeah.
I never connected with my peers growing up. I never could get to read somebody on the surface and then get deeper.
Mhm.
I know people who are the ugliest people. I mean, I know I can think of a guy who I think he is so ugly.
Mhm.
And from the day I met him, I thought he was so ugly. And he is the talk of the town. I mean, I'm talking his high school teachers. Like, oh, if I wasn't his teacher when he was in high school, I'm like, oh, right? And
Yeah.
all the men want to be in, and all the women want to be the girl that he cheats on his wife with. I mean, he's so ugly to me. I don't see him as attractive, and then deeper, and then go, oh yeah, but he's a dog. I never saw him that way. And so the fact that I see all of society simply putting so much, it's just conditioning. They are so out of touch with reality that someone's appearance makes everything. It's crazy to me. I remember when I lost my husband 4 years ago, and I went through such a grieving period, and I knew I was going to have to. And I did what I could, but he was my everything. And I had to grieve. And I lost so much weight. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I looked horrible. I knew that, but that wasn't my focus. I was just trying to focus on getting through the day and getting my children through a healthy type of grieving period, right?
Yeah.
I knew it was going to take about 3 years to fully do. So I heard every single day for 6 months how bad I looked. Every day.
Yeah.
How bad I looked. And on the rare occasion, because I lost weight. I was like, okay. And I would tell people, I would go, oh, well, thanks, Jennifer Lopez. But I'm actually dying on the inside. I really feel like I could die. And so sorry, I'm not up to your beauty standard, but you have a human in here who's actually broken.
Yeah.
You know, and they wouldn't even get that. They wouldn't. I'd be like, well, I feel like I'm dying. I mean, I'm really dying, and my physical appearance is the last thing on my mind.
Yeah.
Even I know it's unhealthy. I'm doing my best, but I'm broken. And not one person, not one. I mean, oh, well, you're hot and you're young and you're what? What?
Yeah.
And or you need to eat something, blow away, or honey, you look so terrible, or
Yeah.
I had one guy who said, you're kind of chunky before, you lost a lot of weight, you look good. And I was like, I am not something for you. I don't care. Like, why did that even come out of your mouth?
Mhm.
It's not something that I look in the mirror and go, I'm a little chunky today. I just don't. I see someone I'm proud of, and I see someone who's worked really, really hard to get where they are, and I do my best every day, and I don't lie to myself, and just see that. I don't see something I would change anymore, even though I did my whole life. I'd change it. So the physical, the commenting on the physical is very unhealthy. That if people would be aware of it. We have all these cliches. It's on the inside that counts. Oh yeah. When's the last time you saw somebody on the inside? Yeah,
That's a good question. It's interesting. It's very surface level. It's not human to human. It's just like, I want to put the least amount of effort into this as possible.
And that comes from
maybe. I don't know if it's on purpose, but it seems like that.
Yeah, it is. Of course it is.
Yeah.
The body archetype that was chosen for modeling when modeling first became a thing was the fitness body archetype. That has really, really helped with human conditioning, especially with women. They're all mentally ill. We are all brainwashed. And you can't even, I can't even start with women half the time unless they're coming to me for help. They are so brainwashed. They can't hear a word I say. Like weight. Well, if I could just get down to 142, then I'd be happy. And I'm like, oh, do you have a health concern? You're like, no, I would just really like to get down to that number. It's just 12. And then I'd be happy. And like, oh, well, what would the number tell you about your happiness? Well, I just want to get healthier and I want to go work out a little bit. And I'm like, how would being 142 tell you if you're doing a good job? How would being 142 tell you that you have been adequately healthy or working out or happy? I'm like, oh, well, just like eating a little cleaner, eating a little better, maybe, go keto, less carbs, less sugar. And I'm like, how would 142 tell you that you've achieved that? And they're like, well, just like all around better, just like all around healthier. And I'm like, how would 142 tell you if you achieved that?
Yeah.
It's brainwashed. They're brainwashed. They think their weight tells them something and makes them happy. And there's no way for that number to. Now, I'm not talking about obesity. There's, but BMI, the BMI chart has been thrown out. So it should have never been a thing. But it's a good way to condition women. They're all mentally ill. That's right. So there's that aspect to it as well. We're so focused on young girls see these models and think, what does my body look like? And women who have babies look at photoshopped images and think, I should have this baby and look this way. Why is the way that you are wrong? Just tell me why. Like, if you can give me an adequate reason why it's bad to have stretch marks or something, like tell me what's wrong with it. But it's because that's what they were conditioned to.
And it's also a form of disconnection from your body.
Yes,
in a way.
Very bad for moral character.
It's because like I'm not good now. Physically, my body's not good now, and it'll be when it's good when I hit this number.
That's right. And
so it's interesting. I wanted to ask you because you were mentioning happiness, and I'm gonna start wrapping up with my final 3 questions here. It's a tough question. What's the key to happiness, Chelsea Shanks? How can people be happier?
So I've always said the key to happiness is wholeness.
Yeah.
People are searching for wholeness, but they think it's happiness. When people say, I want to be happy, I say, oh, like all the time? What about when your mom dies and you're in a valley and it's dark? Do you think you should be happy then? Do you think that'd be healthy? And they go, no. I just mean like, I just want to feel complete or not lost. And I go, so you want wholeness, you want peace and wholeness. That's what people are searching for, is wholeness. And to become whole, you need to fix what's broken. There's nothing wrong with being broken. Everybody's born into a broken world, raised by broken people. It's how we are now, and it can be fixed. And until you fix your brokenness and start learning new skills, such as coping, communication, awareness, and mindfulness of yourself and what truly is healthy, and throw out your statistics of this is what success is, this is what a mom is, this is what I'm like. And you will really learn a lot on happiness and where it comes from, and it can give you a peace that surpasses.
Okay. And I wanted to ask you, you are in a massage, you do massage therapy, or very highly licensed medical massage therapy. What type of impact does that work have on others? Have you seen that have on other people?
Well, I'm a medical massage therapist, and I'm licensed in many different areas. So we're just going to talk about, let's talk about pre-op and post-op. I'm licensed in that, pre-surgery and post-surgery. There are times where you do need surgery, like a knee replacement. And your doctor will tell you to wait. We don't want to give you the surgery now. We want to wait until you absolutely can't stand the pain anymore, because those surgeries wear out in about 19 years. So if you get it when you're 60, you're going to need it when you're 80, but 80 is too old to have a knee surgery. So you'll just be in pain. So they want you to wait a long time to get it. You can keep that client out of pain without prescription drugs for about 4 or 5 years. And then to where it gets to where, they would have to come like every week to get out of that pain, but it's the same as a prescription refill. You know what I mean? But it's not, it's not a medication. So there's a huge change in that type of thing. And I teach them how they can modify their body at home so they don't have to pay somebody to do it. And that's educating them on their own body is great. That's, you shouldn't have to just pay somebody. We're taught to educate you. And then to prevent surgery, rotator cuff. When you tear your rotator cuff, okay, that's an umbrella term. Okay, if you tear it, it could be one muscle fiber, or it could be the entire muscle off the bone. So, when is surgery needed?
Is that here, the rotator cuff?
So you have 4 muscles that create the rotator cuff, and that's why you can rotate it. Yeah. Okay. So you tear any one of those muscles. But so if you go to the doctor and they say, oh, you have a torn rotator cuff, we can do surgery. Well, okay. I would ask why. Why is it needed? Because that's just what their next step is. That's what the insurance pays for. That's what That's what they're going to tell you. You can have surgery. If the muscle is not ripped more than halfway off the bone, which you don't need an X-ray for, you can feel. You don't need, yeah. I mean, yeah, it'll lump up. It'll lump. If it's not torn more than halfway off the bone, you don't need surgery.
Yeah.
You will have the same, you'll have to deal with frozen shoulder with both things. If you have surgery, sew it back on. You'll do physical therapy for frozen shoulder for 6 months. And then, you know, they don't tell you anything else how to maintain it. And I've had people come in, I mean, oh gosh, they'll say, well, you know, my shoulder's been hurting, but I hurt it when I was in high school and I tore my rotator cuff and that's why. And I'm like, you're 55. Why are you saying that you, like, when people get hurt in an area, they rationalize any pain the rest of their life in that area to that like injury from high school. And I go, you should let me look at that because you may have, if it was a bad injury, you could have some things that could affect you lifelong, but very minimal. You know, you shouldn't attribute every pain in that area to something because you're going through a lot of unnecessary pain. And so a lot of things can be avoided through medical massage, and a lot cheaper, by the way, and a lot less stressful. And then the after surgery, prevention of scar tissue, things like that, can really be helpful that they don't tell you about. They're like, oh, well, you've got a lot of scar tissue in that area. We can go in and cut that out. What? Isn't that more of a foreign, your body is going through some more trauma and you're going to cut it out and it will build more. With medical massage, we stop the receptors and from receiving or sending out information that the body has been hurt and that it needs to draw on that fluid to solidify and to scar tissue. So it's a natural way of stopping the bodily system of trauma. And so we help them, but in many ways, and I've got many licenses and it can help them in many ways.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. Very cool. So it's preventative. It can be after you have to have surgery, it can help you to heal better. And beforehand, it can prevent surgery if you don't really need it and help you to manage that pain.
It can educate you on your body. That way you don't have to go to somebody to get accurate. If you ever have a doctor or a specialist or any treatment ever, and you feel stupid for asking a question or they make you feel stupid, get another doctor. We are not trained to do that in the medical field. We are trained to educate you and make sure that you feel comfortable with your treatment. And after 30 days, you should always question, am I better? If your answer is no, I don't feel any better, and you ask your doctor and they say, oh, you're making progress, that's going to mess you up because a lot of people go, I thought it was getting better, but I feel worse. But they say I'm making progress and it's very bad for you psychologically. So you should be able to know if you're better, if the treatment is working. And you should feel comfortable with whatever treatment you're getting.
Yeah, I see it come full circle. So the doctor is like the authority figure, and your own body saying, "Oh, I'm not feeling better."
Yeah, that's what I mean by being so desynchronized from it. It's like you feel worse, and the doctor says, "Oh, you're making progress." I must be wrong.
And then you just kind of like, "Oh, I'm not going to question it. You are a doctor after all."
That's right.
Which I mean, there's good and bad in any profession. But I think that's interesting. Okay. Very cool. And how can people find your business, your massage therapy business?
Well, I'm on Google, of course. I'm a business on Google. It's a massage, green wellness, massage and therapies with an ampersand. Is my location here in San Antonio, and then I have a massage therapy by Chelsea Shanks and on hands. They're both on Google, both on Facebook, and I can link the website of mine in the comments below.
Yeah, send me and I'll put it in the comment, not in the comments, in the description. Sure. And I have not gone to you yet. I'm planning to schedule a massage actually next week. But I did talk to someone who did, and he said you were amazing. Yeah. And I think it was some form of like Reiki work. It was something different than that. But he was saying that you read him like a book and you knew everything about him. I'm not going into details, but
just reading his parasympathetic nervous system, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And you could kind of see like you were talking about that parasympathetic. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. I can tell you exactly why you are the way that you are and how you got there and how to fix it.
Yeah. Afterwards, or we can do it now. You want to psychoanalyze me before we go?
I don't know if I want to online.
We can do it afterwards. But first I want to ask you this question. If you want to, you can. It's up to you. But the question is, I always ask this at the end. If you could leave the audience with one final message, what would that be?
Be well, actual wellness. Stop telling yourself you're okay. Stop telling people that you're okay. Stop trying to rationalize if you're not okay. You know, you can really do damage that way. So go into ventures and days evaluating yourself. Don't get up and start running. Try to be aware of where you're at and moving forward consciously instead of automatically. And make time for yourself and others, of other people. Actual time. I have mothers that go, oh, you know how it is being a mom, you're always on the bottom of the totem pole. And I'm like, no, I don't understand. I don't know that. Especially in Texas. We've got, you know, women who they're always like, oh, you know, can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of others. But that's such a cliche thing. But it's true. Make time for your mental wellness, because if you're a mom, you need to be mentally well and strong, because you are the one teaching your children. You are the one literally building their brains. It's you. Yeah. And so their self-worth, that bridge comes from you, and that's it. Not what you tell them, how you do yourself. If you're afraid to cry in front of your children, if you're afraid to be vulnerable, if you can't communicate or show them that you can communicate in a relationship, you're teaching them that. And so make time for yourself, make time for others. And yeah.
So I love that. That's so awesome. It's be well. It's okay not to be okay. And because it's so easy to rationalize or distract, you know, Netflix, alcohol, there's so many different things you can do. Just look at your phone for a few hours, you know.
Yeah.
And make time for the things that matter. What were you saying? Sorry.
Oh, and I said, yeah, I mean, if you're not okay, don't tell people you're okay. I mean, it's very bad for you. And people, because a lot of people are asking if you're okay because they sense that you're not. And so you're just furthering this lying society of, oh, I'm okay. I mean, or if you lost somebody important to you and people go, hey, just wanted to check up on you. Are you okay?
Yeah.
I'm doing the best I can. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they know that they have a sense in them that you shouldn't be okay. And you want to appear strong or something like that. But no one ever said that a strong, mentally healthy, well person is okay all the time. You're not okay all the time.
Yeah. And a lot of geniuses, a lot of really strong people have had problems. Like Abraham Lincoln comes to mind. He had, I think, issues with depression and different things like that. A lot of artists.
Yeah.
Very cool. It almost reminds me of Brave New World. Have you ever read that book?
Oh, yes, I have.
It reminds me of that book in the sense that I think you always had to be happy.
Yeah.
And you would take drugs constantly to be really happy. Yeah. And anything that was out of the ordinary like that, it was like, okay, well then, you're gone.
You'll own nothing and you'll like it.
Yeah. It reminds me a little bit of that, but I really appreciate you sharing your knowledge today on, I don't think I've covered this topic before. It was similar to things we've talked about before, like how to have good social skills, I think is important for anybody, but in the lens of healing ourselves and being well in the way we live our lives and living consciously, I think this was I enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you.
And anything else you want to say?
No, I enjoyed it as well. Thanks for talking to me.
Awesome. Thank you, Chelsea. And let me see. I'm going to stop the live stream here, but otherwise,